Good morning, everybody. Welcome in on this beautiful Sunday morning, April 21st in Zone 8. I believe it's 8A, North Texas. Today, I want to kind of go over some of the stuff that we should be direct sowing into the garden. Now, we can't go out into the garden today because you can see beside me or behind me, the soil is really, really wet. So, anyway, but I thought it'd be a good time to sit down with you this morning and explain 5 vegetables that we should actually be direct sowing into the garden and not transplanting into the garden. Now, one of these on my list, I do grow indoors and transplant, but I also, after about 3 weeks, I'll plant this one direct seeded. That way I can have a succession crop a little later on. And what are those 5 things? Let's get to them. Now, the number one crop that I will plant direct sow into the garden would be beans. Now, I do have a video on whether to do bush beans or pole beans, and you can link that in the description up here. Pole beans are going to grow, and they're going to need a trellis to grow on, and they're going to produce all year until the first frost. And the bush beans, they produce quicker and mostly all at the same time. Now, I like to grow my pole beans, and you can grow them up one of these trellis things like so, or, wire trellises, it doesn't matter. But I usually grow the pole beans, and I have some growers around here that grow a lot of the bush beans, and we trade off our beans and we trade off our vegetables all the time. To plant the beans, if you're going to do them, you want to plant them about 1 inch deep every 3 to 4 inches. The second thing that I like to direct sow is the corn. Now, corn, you either want to plant them in blocks or in rows of minimum of 4 rows, because these are wind pollinated. And if you plant just 2 rows or you don't plant them in blocks, when I plant mine, I usually do like a 10 foot by 10 foot block and plant them every 12 inches or so. And because the wind pollinates these, and if you don't plant them in at least 4 rows, it's not going to get to pollination, and you're going to get corn that grows about halfway, and you don't have all your kernels and all that stuff, because each one of the strands that come out of the top of the corn goes to a certain kernel. The wind needs to pollinate each one of those in order for it to actually pollinate each kernel. Otherwise, you get half kernels like these here, and that is from lack of pollination. All right. The next thing that we're going to grow, you can either grow in mounds or trellises. And what is a mound? You plant the dirt up in small hills, and it causes a planting environment that mimics a raised bed. So your soil will actually warm a little quicker because it doesn't have all the other soil, it's raised up, and it also drains well. So what are we planting in these mounds? You got it. We plant them on trellises here at the Wolfman Gardening, but cucumbers can actually be planted in mounds, or you can plant them as in a trellis. Cucumbers can be grown in mounds, or you can grow them against a trellis like what we do. We let ours climb the trellis here at the Wolfman Gardening, and it makes it easier for me to manage. But if you don't have the money or you don't have a trellis, you can grow them directly on the ground. You just make your mound, set your mounds 18 to 36 inches apart to give you plenty of room, and you can grow them that way as well. Now, these need to be planted at least 1 week after your last frost date. If you're planting them on a trellis, you need to plant them 1 inch deep, about every 6 to 8 inches apart. And if you're doing them on a mound, plant 3 seeds or 4 seeds per mound, and then thin it to only 3 plants once they start growing. All right, the next thing we're going to grow in our garden, and we're going to direct sow, is radish. Now, a radish can be a very rewarding crop because these things can actually mature from the time you plant them in the ground until harvest between 28 to 40 days. So it's a quick crop. It grows quickly. It is a root crop. You can grow these in cooler weather, but I like to plant them every 2 to 3 weeks. Probably say every 2 weeks. Plant them in succession plant every 2 weeks. That way throughout the year, you're getting a harvest every 2 to 3 weeks. That way you can actually grow them and enjoy them. That way you don't get them all at one time. Now these you want to plant about a 1/2 inch deep, every 2 to 3 inches apart, and you can direct sow these into the ground as soon as the soil is workable. And that finally brings me to number 5. Number 5 is your squash and zucchini. Now these can be grown vertically, but if you grow them vertically, it's going to take a lot of maintenance. They don't have the little tendrils that cucumbers and beans have, which grab onto these. So if you're going to grow them vertically, you're going to have to manually use clips, use zip ties, use string to hold them up on this here. They can be grown vertically, and we've grown them vertically, but it, like I said, it just takes a little more time and a little more effort. So, but if you have the space, grow them in mounds, and you want the mounds to be 4 to 6 feet apart. So, and you direct sow these about 1 inch deep and put about 4 to 6 seeds per mound. And then once they start to grow, you want to thin those out to about 3 plants per hill. That's going to wrap it up. 5 things that we can grow in our garden right now, mid-April. Put them in the ground. Let's get them going. Like, comment, share this video. Leave your comments down at the bottom. Think about subscribing to the channel. And like always, keep it growing.